You are sitting outside in the dark. Maybe you are on a camping trip deep in the woods, or maybe you are just sitting around a metal fire pit in a suburban backyard. You are surrounded by your friends or your family, and for the first hour or two, everyone is talking, laughing, and sharing stories. But eventually, inevitably, the conversation slowly begins to die down. The words fade out, the jokes stop, and a heavy, profound silence settles over the group. Now, in any other social situation, this kind of silence would be completely unbearable. If you were sitting in a living room, somebody would desperately try to fill the void. Someone would pull out their phone, someone would turn on the television, someone would nervously ask a random question just to break the tension. But out here, sitting around the fire, nobody does any of that. Nobody checks their notifications, nobody tries to fix the silence. Everyone just sits there completely still, staring directly into the flames. 10 minutes pass, 20 minutes pass, half an hour goes by, and you are perfectly, entirely content. I want you to stop and think about how completely insane that actually is. You live in a world where your brain is constantly, aggressively, and relentlessly overstimulated. You are a modern human being who pulls out a smartphone in an elevator because standing still for 12 seconds feels like agonizing boredom. You live in an ecosystem of infinite scrolling where algorithms feed you highly edited, hyperkinetic, aggressively loud videos every 15 seconds just to keep your attention from wandering. Your biological baseline in the modern world is a state of chronic, inescapable distraction. And yet you can pull up a cheap folding chair and stare at a glowing, decomposing pile of wood for 2 straight hours, and you do not feel bored for a single second. You do not feel the urge to multitask. You do not feel the phantom vibration of your phone in your pocket. You are completely, utterly, and inexplicably captivated. Why? Why does a pile of burning sticks have the power to completely override the modern, dopamine-addicted human nervous system? What is it about staring into a fire that makes the most restless, anxious, hyperactive species on the face of the planet suddenly freeze in place and just watch? The answer is not just that the fire is warm or that the colors are pretty to look at. The answer is that you are not just looking at a fire. You are plugging your nervous system directly into the oldest piece of biological software humanity possesses. And to understand how this ancient software completely controls you, we have to look deep inside the electrical architecture of your own head. Right now, as you go about your normal day, your brain is operating in what neuroscientists call a beta state. Beta brainwaves are fast, erratic, high frequency, and highly active. They are the electrical signature of problem solving, of active focus, of anxiety, of navigating heavy traffic, of reading stressful emails, of worrying about your future and obsessively analyzing your past. Beta is the state of survival in the modern world. It is the frequency of constant, grinding, cognitive friction. You spend almost your entire waking life trapped in this fast-paced beta rhythm, which is exactly why you feel so mentally exhausted by the time the sun goes down. But when you sit down in front of a campfire, that electrical pattern begins to violently shift. And the most fascinating part is that this shift does not happen because you consciously decide to relax. You are not meditating. You are not trying to calm down. It happens because the fire physically forces it to happen. A wood fire flickers at a very specific, mathematically consistent frequency. It looks chaotic. It looks entirely random. But there is a rhythmic, pulsating consistency to its movement and its light output. When your visual cortex processes that specific flickering light, especially when it is surrounded by the vast pitch-black darkness of the night, a highly involuntary physiological phenomenon occurs called neural entrainment. Your brainwaves actually begin to physically synchronize with the external visual stimulus of the dancing flame. The fast, erratic, stressful beta waves begin to dramatically slow down, stretching out and smoothing into long, rolling alpha waves. Alpha waves are the frequency of deep relaxation, of light meditation, of daydreaming, and of profound peace. When you are forced into an alpha state by the flickering of the fire, the constant, noisy, hypercritical chatter of your internal monologue simply evaporates. The anxiety about tomorrow vanishes. The regrets about yesterday disappear. You are physiologically and chemically incapable of maintaining a state of high stress when your brain is producing strong, synchronized alpha waves. The fire is literally hacking your visual cortex to change the electrical output of your entire nervous system. It is not a cozy, aesthetic choice. It is an external remote control for your biology. But this begs a massive, genuinely terrifying question. Why is our neurology so perfectly and specifically tuned to respond to this one particular stimulus? Why does a flickering light in the dark have the absolute power to instantly sedate an apex predator like a human being? To answer that, you have to understand exactly what happens to you when you enter that campfire trance. I mean this in the most literal, biological, strictly scientific sense possible. When you stare into the flames and your brain drops into that alpha state, your physical body transforms. Your heart rate slows down to a very specific, resting rhythm. Your blood pressure drops measurably. Your breathing deepens, drawing more oxygen into your lower lungs. The chemical composition of your blood fundamentally shifts as the stress hormone cortisol decreases and subtle, rewarding amounts of dopamine and oxytocin are released into your bloodstream. Now, imagine if a team of neuroscientists were to hook you up to an EEG machine and a heart monitor while you were staring at that campfire in your backyard. And then, imagine they could somehow transport those machines back in time, 400,000 years into the past, and hook them up to a Homo erectus sitting around a fire in a freezing cave during the Pleistocene epoch. The electrical readouts would be identical. The chemical signatures would be identical. Not just similar, absolutely, perfectly identical. We talk about history as if it is something that happened to other people in other times in a world that is so far away it no longer truly exists. We think of cavemen as these distant, primitive creatures that have nothing to do with us. But human biology does not care about the calendar. Human biology does not care about your smartphone or your car. The hardware inside your skull, the very flesh and electricity that makes up your consciousness, is the exact same hardware that belonged to the first humans who learned how to control a flame. When you enter that trance state today, you are not just relaxing after a long week at work. You are stepping into a neurobiological time machine. For that 20 minutes or that hour, the modern world ceases to exist inside your biology. Your stress over your credit card bill or your upcoming meeting or your social media presence is completely overwritten by the exact same chemical and electrical signature that your ancestors experienced when they survived another brutal, bloody day in an unforgiving world. You are experiencing the exact same profound relief, the exact same hypnotic peace, the exact same neurochemical reward as a prehistoric hunter. You are bridging a gap of nearly 500,000 years just by looking at a piece of burning wood. You become, for a fleeting, magical moment, entirely indistinguishable from the very first humans. But evolution does not do anything by accident. It is a ruthless, unforgiving, hyper-practical engineer. It does not give us a profound, species-wide hypnotic response to fire just because it feels cozy to roast marshmallows. Evolution only programs behaviors that keep you alive, and this campfire trance was engineered for one very specific life or death reason. I want you to really think about the terrifying reality of the prehistoric night. When the sun went down in the primal world, humanity immediately dropped to the absolute bottom of the food chain. The darkness was absolute. It was not the ambient, glowing street lamp darkness of a modern suburb. It was a suffocating, pitch-black void filled with creatures that were specifically designed to hunt in the dark. There were cave hyenas that hunted in massive packs. There were saber-toothed cats that could see perfectly without light and move without making a single sound. There were predators that could smell a drop of human sweat from a mile away and tear a person apart in seconds. The night belonged entirely to the monsters. Before the invention of fire, humans had to hide in trees or deep in the dark recesses of caves, clinging to each other in absolute paralyzing terror, just waiting for the sun to come back up so they could move again. But then everything changed. We captured fire. We brought a piece of the burning sun down to the earth and put it in the middle of our camp. The fire pushed the monsters back. It blinded them. It terrified them. It created a tiny, glowing, circular radius of safety in a world of absolute death. But there was a major behavioral problem. Human beings are naturally curious. We are restless. We are explorers. We get bored easily. If a human sitting around the safety of the fire got bored and decided to wander off into the darkness to explore the woods or to look for a midnight snack, or just because they could not sit still, they would be killed almost instantly. Evolution needed a way to keep us inside the circle of light. It needed a way to completely paralyze our natural urge to wander and explore. So, evolution created the trance. The campfire trance is not a relaxation technique. It is a biological leash. Your brain rewards you with a steady, dripping, intoxicating release of dopamine simply for looking at the flames. It makes the act of doing absolutely nothing feel incredibly rewarding and deeply important. It sedates you. It hypnotizes you. It makes the idea of getting up and walking away from the light feel almost physically difficult and profoundly unappealing. You are neurologically programmed to become addicted to the flickering light because the humans who got bored and walked away from the fire did not survive to pass on their genes. Only the ones who sat mesmerized, staring into the flames until dawn, survived the night. You are the direct descendant of the hypnotized. Your ancestors were the ones who stayed in the light. By the way, if you are fascinated by how the brutal, bloody realities of the prehistoric world still completely control your modern behavior, you need to join the tribe right now. Hit the subscribe button and leave a like on this video. The Mesolithic Mind channel is entirely dedicated to uncovering all the bizarre evolutionary glitches and survival instincts that secretly dictate how you live your life today. We are sitting around the digital campfire right now, sharing the stories of our ancient survival. So subscribe, pull up a seat, and do not wander off into the dark. Let us take this concept even further, because the implications of this biological leash go way beyond just surviving the predators of the night. The fire did not just keep us safe from being eaten. It fundamentally changed what it actually meant to be a human being. Before the campfire, our ancestors lived entirely in the brutal, immediate present moment. During the day, you are foraging, you are hunting, you are making stone tools, you are running from danger. You are purely 100% focused on the physical mechanics of staying alive. There is absolutely no time to reflect, no time to dream, no time to philosophize. But at night, anchored to the spot by the hypnotic pull of the flames, bathed in those slow, rolling alpha waves, something entirely new and unprecedented happened in the history of planet Earth. For the very first time in human history, there was free time. And more importantly, there was a shared collective focus. When a group of humans all stare at the same fire, their brainwaves literally synchronize with each other. They are all entering the exact same meditative, altered state of consciousness at the exact same time. The social friction, the hierarchy, and the aggression of the daytime completely dissolves. The competitive beta state gives way to a collective, tribal calm. This is exactly where human language truly flourished. This is where storytelling was born. Think about it. When you are staring at the fire, you do not need to make eye contact with the person sitting next to you. Eye contact, both in the animal kingdom and for early humans, is inherently confrontational. It is intense. It is aggressive. It demands an immediate response. But when everyone is staring into the hypnotic flames, you can speak into the dark without the pressure of a direct gaze. You can confess things. You can share deep fears. You can tell myths about why the stars move and why the seasons change. The fire was the first theater. It was the first classroom. It was the first therapy session. The campfire trance is the literal evolutionary crucible where human culture, religion, and society were actually forged. We became who we are today only because the fire forced us to sit still long enough to actually talk to each other without fighting. Which brings us all the way back to you, sitting in the incredibly loud, incredibly fast modern world. We have completely eradicated the darkness. We have LED streetlights that can illuminate a city so brightly, it looks like high noon at midnight. We have central heating that keeps our homes at a perfect, constant temperature. Regardless of the freezing blizzards raging outside, we have completely and utterly conquered the night. We no longer need the physical fire to survive the monsters, but the ghost in the machine is still there. The ancient hardware inside your skull still desperately demands its reset. This is exactly why when you go to a fancy, expensive restaurant, they put a single flickering candle in the middle of the table. It is certainly not for illumination. They have electricity. It is placed there to trigger that tiny, subtle drop in beta waves. It is there to artificially induce a microdose of that ancient campfire intimacy, so you feel closer and more connected to the person sitting across from you. This is why millions of people spend hard-earned money to buy fake electric fireplaces that do not even produce real heat, just so they can watch the glowing orange plastic logs flicker in the corner of their living room. This is why, on a cold winter night, millions of people will pull up a 10-hour video of a crackling fireplace in 4K resolution on their giant flat-screen televisions and just let it play in the background. The modern human brain is completely exhausted. It is suffocating under the crushing weight of constant notifications, artificial blue light, endless streams of data, and the relentless pressure to always be productive. It is begging for a break. And the only true break it inherently understands, the only biological off switch that was ever built into its original design by evolution, is the chaotic, rhythmic dance of a burning flame. We surround ourselves with glowing screens all day and all night, desperately trying to find some kind of escape. But the screens just produce more beta waves. They just create more anxiety. They are a false fire. They do not trigger the alpha state. They do not release the ancient dopamine. They do not make us feel safe. So, we keep seeking out the real thing, or the closest imitation we can possibly find. We buy expensive metal fire pits for our tiny suburban backyards. We light scented candles in our bathrooms. We gather around massive bonfires on the beach in the summer. We are all still just ancient hunter-gatherers, overwhelmed by a futuristic world that moves entirely too fast, desperately looking for that ancient biological leash to hold us still. We are looking for the only thing that ever made our species feel truly, completely safe. So the next time you find yourself staring into a fire, completely zoned out, not thinking about your job or your phone or your endless list of responsibilities, do not try to snap yourself out of it. Do not feel guilty for doing absolutely nothing. Just sit there and let it happen. Let your brainwaves slow down. Let your visual cortex synchronize with the ancient light. You are not wasting time. You are participating in the single oldest human ritual on Earth. You are resetting your biology. And for a few quiet, perfect moments, you are sitting right next to the ghosts of the very first humans, safe in the warm light, while the monsters wait in the dark.